Not every camp rode to war. Many waited in silence, tying knots, boiling bones, and watching the sky for omens. Welcome to boring history for sleep. Tonight, we drift across the vast, open steppe, a land where the wind moves like memory, slow and uninterrupted. You are surrounded by grass that stretches farther than thought, beneath skies that never seem to end. There are no stone walls here, no castles or columns, just the sound of rope creaking against wood, the crackle of fire in the distance, and the soft breath of animals lying down for the night. We are not with warriors tonight, not with the thunder of hooves or the smoke of conquest. Tonight, we step quietly into the quiet places, into the daily rhythm of the Mongol encampment, where most lived not in glory, but in habit. Who stirred the stew, who whispered to the horses, and who stared into the sky, trying to read what came next. We will begin in discomfort, cold mornings, frost-bitten fingers, and stiff canvas against wind-chapped skin. Then we will follow one small story, a girl with a gift for horses. Will drift into ritual of sky burials, where the body becomes the wind, and will end beneath silk, inside the Khan's pavilion, where warmth and quiet schemes pass like incense. But for now, just breathe in the cold air, and imagine yourself there. You awaken before the sun. There is no bed beneath you, only layers of felt, barely warmed by your own breath and the thin heat of bodies nearby. Your limbs are stiff, your face is cold. You pull your coat, your deal thick and worn, tighter around your shoulders, and sit up slowly. Everything creaks. Outside, the wind hasn't stopped since the night. It rarely does. You push aside the felt flap of the gear, your round tent, and step into the open. The sky is heavy with gray, not quite dawn. The steppe stretches endlessly around you, soft and silent. Your boots crunch over dry frost. The grass is brittle. The air is dry and sharp, and your work begins. You are a tent pitcher, not by rank, not by title, simply by necessity. Each time the camp moves, you move it. You haul wood, you tie ropes. You hammer pegs deep into frozen ground with a mallet older than your memory. The tents, or gairs, are made from lattice walls and heavy felt. They are your shelter, but they are also your burden. Your fingers ache even under layers. Rope burns leave pink lines across your palms. Every gust of wind makes the canvas flap against your shoulder, and it takes all your strength just to keep it still long enough to lash it down. You are not alone in this. There are others, cousins, aunts, neighbors from other wagons. The camp is a sea of people who share the same silence, the same slow chores. You pass them with nods, never needing to speak. Words are saved for night, for songs, for stories, not for labor. The rhythm of your life is rope and felt, wind and weight. You carry the doorframe of the gur on your back, a wide arc of carved wood, and set it first. It must always face south. Always. That's how it's done. Then the wall lattice, tied with rawhide. Then the center posts. Then the crown. It must be perfect, even in a place with no kings. By midday, the smoke begins to rise. That means others have finished. The stew pots are being hung inside, over tiny metal stoves. You smell mutton fat, dried milk, bitter tea. It makes your stomach tighten, but you don't stop yet. Not until the final peg is in. Not until the ropes are tight. And once it's done, you do it again. Not always for your own. Sometimes you help your uncle, or your brother, or the family with too many small children. Everyone helps. Everyone endures. Your reward is not rest. Your reward is continuity, that the tent will stand through the night, that the wind will not take it, that the sheep will be corralled before dark, that the pot will boil, that the children will not cry in the cold. You tie your knots tightly, because if you don't, someone will suffer. And not far off, only one tent over, by evening you eat quickly, boiled meat, some fermented milk, maybe hard cheese if it's a lucky day. The bowl is past, you don't complain. Complaining changes nothing. The wind begins to settle, slightly, or maybe you're just getting used to it. You wrap yourself in your coat, the same one you worked in, the same one you will sleep in. There is no fresh one. Inside your tent, the fire hisses in the little iron stove. A child rolls over in their sleep. Someone murmurs a name. You lay down on the floor again, felt blankets, the ground. And for a moment, before sleep takes you, you hear it, the creak of rope, the flap of hide, the low, distant snort of a horse tied just outside, and the whisper of the wind, telling you that tomorrow you'll pitch another tent, just like today, just like every day. And that is how the empire moves. Not on horseback, but on aching shoulders and frozen fingers, and the silent art of making shelter in the wind. The days on the steppe do not announce themselves. They arrive softly, with the hush of hooves on grass, with the rustling of canvas against wood, with the sound of a small breath drawn slowly between sleep and waking. This is where her story begins. Not with a birth, not with a war, not even with a name, but with the sound of horses breathing just beyond the firelight. She was young, perhaps 11, perhaps 9, when the others began to notice. She did not speak to the animals, not in the way stories suggest. She didn't whistle, or chant, or wave her hands like a priestess. No, she simply stood near them, and they stood still. It was subtle, easy to miss. The horses were calmer when she brushed them. They let her untangle their manes without a twitch. They let her lead them to water without resistance. Even the skittish ones, the wild-eyed stallions brought down from the hills, grew quiet in her hands. Her family didn't call it magic. They called it patience, and patience on the steppe was rare. She would rise just after the first fire flickered in the iron stove. Her small hands would gather the brushes, the rope, the smooth stones for polishing hooves. She moved slowly, deliberately, not from laziness, but from awareness. Her footsteps barely broke the frost. The herd was large, nearly 30 head, and each one had its own temperament. There was a gray mare with a limp, a brown gelding who only drank from the eastern stream, a young foal who slept on its side, legs twitching like it dreamed of galloping. She tended to them all, not because she was asked, but because it felt right. The other children played with hoops and sticks. They ran beside carts and chased the dogs. She sat beside the horses and watched the clouds move like ships across the blue ceiling of the world. One day, a storm rolled in from the west, a sudden, hard rain, with thunder that made even the yaks startle. The horses scattered, adults shouted, ropes snapped, people ran with arms flailing, trying to gather the herd before nightfall. And she walked, just walked, barefoot through puddles, her coat soaked and dragging in the mud. One by one, the horses came to her, not like pets, not like soldiers obeying command, but like travelers returning to a fire they remembered from long ago. She led them home in silence. The rain slackened, the wind sighed. No one spoke as she passed. After that, the elders began watching her more closely, not with fear, but with quiet wonder. They gave her more responsibility. Let her decide which horse would pull the carts. Let her choose which would be tied and which allowed to roam. Still, she said little. Her life was simple: boiling oats, scraping hooves, washing her hands in cold streams. She slept close to the animals at night, often outside the tent, beneath only a thin covering and the stars. Some believed she could hear the horses breathe in her dreams. There were whispers about her, that she had a gift from the sky, that a spirit had touched her when she was a baby, that she had no fear, not of wolves, not of storms, not of death, but in truth she was only gentle. And the steppe remembers gentleness. Years passed, she grew taller, stronger, but she still rose before dawn. She still walked among the horses like she was one of them. She never married. She never left the camp. She never asked for anything beyond a warm blanket and a brush with strong bristles. Some say she died one winter night, holding a foal that would not survive, that she breathed her last into its mane and closed her eyes as the snow covered them both. Others say she simply walked out into the mist one morning and did not return, that she became part of the herd, that her spirit gallops still in the wind just beyond the edge of the visible world. But most believe she faded gently like a candle in an empty tent. No fanfare, no monument, just a lifetime of kindness absorbed into the rhythm of the earth. And when a horse is especially calm, or when it pauses beside a child instead of bolting, there are those who smile and whisper, "She's still watching." Not every legend roars. Some just breathe and wait. There is a place beyond the edge of the camp. No tents stand there. No animals are tied there. No fires are lit there. It is not marked by stones or gates or flags. And yet everyone knows where it begins. It is the place where sky meets earth, where silence becomes sacred, where what was once alive becomes part of the wind. And though you may not speak of it often, you will go there someday. And before you do, you will pass by it many times. Eyes lowered, steps slow, breath steady. The practice is older than memory. It was never written down in scrolls. It was never carved into tablets. It was passed in whispers between firelight and fading stars. The idea is simple. The body is not the soul. The body is only the vessel. And when the soul is gone, the body must return, not to fire or earth, but to air. When someone dies in the camp, the family gathers, not with loud mourning, but with stillness. There is no rush. Death on the steppe is not a surprise. It is expected, not feared. It arrives like the first frost, not cruel, just present. The body is cleaned with boiled water. The limbs are folded gently. The hair is brushed. The nails are trimmed. Clothing is simple, often just a wrap of felt or a plain robe. No jewelry, no decoration, no excess. The body is then carried quietly by family and neighbors. No shouting, no ceremony, only footsteps, only breath, only the soft rhythm of moving together toward something that is not quite an end. The site chosen is always high, a hill, a ridge, a plateau, somewhere the wind can reach. The body is laid on stones, not buried, not burned, just placed. And then the people step back, they wait. Birds come, large, silent, graceful. Vultures, the watchers of the sky. They circle, then descend, and the rest happens slowly. There is no violence in it, no panic, no fear. The birds do what they have always done. They carry the body upward, not in beaks or claws, but in pieces, piece by piece. They lift what was once heavy, they release it to the air, and when they are done, only the bones remain, smooth, pale, cleaned by time and tradition. These bones may be gathered. Sometimes they are crushed and mixed with milk to feed to smaller birds. Sometimes they are left to rest in a quiet circle of stones. It is not considered gruesome. It is not shameful. It is the final generosity, to become nourishment, to return everything you took, to complete the circle without resistance. Children are taught not to fear this. They are told that to fly after death is better than to rot, that to be seen by the birds is an honor. Sometimes, in moments of reflection, elders say they hope to be remembered, not with tears, but with wind on the hill. Some bring offerings, not for the dead, but for the birds, a carved feather, a bowl of water, a single piece of bread left on a flat stone. And as the seasons turn, the burial site remains unchanged, unbuilt, unwound, untouched. No temple ever stood there. No monument was needed. The sky is the only roof that matters, and it sees everything. Years pass, you grow older. You see more bodies carried to that ridge, sometimes friends, sometimes strangers, each one handled with the same care, the same quiet, the same trust that what leaves the body continues. One day you dream of your own sky burial, not with dread, but with calm. You picture the birds, the light, the warmth of sun on the stone, and you realize there is peace in being part of something so old, so wide, so constant. There is peace in knowing you will be carried, not mourned, lifted, not buried, given back, not held. The steppe does not hoard its dead, it sets them free, and so do you. Let go, let go, go. The wind on the steppe never chooses sides. It moves over peasants and princes alike, tugging at canvas flaps, brushing against fur collars, curling into sleeping ears, and leaving no scent behind. But if you follow the way the grass bends, you'll find the place where the wind slows, where even the breeze seems to bow before entering. It is the Khan's pavilion, a place unlike any other in the encampment. Here, the felt is thicker, the embroidery tighter, the stakes driven deeper into the earth. It rises not by accident, but by decree. Its entrance always faces the most favorable wind. Its circle always perfect. Its frame built by hands that know not just craft, but command. Outside, you may walk in dust. Inside, your boots are removed. The floor is covered in wool and silk, not mats, but layers. Cushions stacked like history. Textures woven with stories from cities you have never seen. You do not speak loudly here. You do not cough. You do not step first. The Khan may be inside, or he may not. But his presence hangs in the air, like the scent of fermented mare's milk, like the warmth from the central hearth, like the long silence before a sentence that changes everything. The pavilion is not a throne room. There is no golden seat, no marble, no jeweled guards, but there is order. Scrolls are stacked beside the fire. Maps drawn with ash ink spread across low tables. Seals pressed into wax, red and thick, still warm to the touch. A quill, a dagger, a wooden bowl, each an extension of judgment. Here, the Khan does not shout. He listens to envoys, to spies, to stormwatchers, to merchants who have crossed 10 deserts and lost 3 camels. And when he answers, it is often with fewer words than you expect. He does not speak of battle often. More often, he speaks of grain, of horses, of the timing of caravans, of marriages between distant cousins. His power is not in his voice. It is in the way people wait for it. And yet, for all the respect, there is a strange stillness here. The kind of stillness you feel near a sleeping animal with sharp teeth. No one eats before the Khan. No one drinks unless he lifts his cup first, and yet the meals are rich. Raw milk, still frothy, meat slow-boiled with herbs from beyond the Altai, hard cheese softened beside the fire, salted plums, flatbread painted with honey. Servants, not many, but chosen carefully, refill bowls before they are empty. They do not speak, they do not look up. Their job is not just to serve food, but to keep rhythm, to maintain a silence that feels complete, like the pause between heartbeats. Outside the pavilion, people guess what punishment will fall. Inside, the Khan leans against a padded cushion, his boots off, his eyes half closed. He is not tired, he is thinking. And when he speaks at last, the words will leave the tent before he does. They will be carried like messages on the wind, changing the course of rivers and borderlines, shifting the weight of tribute, commanding one army to rest and another to ride. But in this moment, now, nothing moves. The silk walls do not flutter. The rugs hold warmth like coals. The air smells of wood smoke and sour milk. The sky outside has darkened, but no one lights a lantern. Light in the Khan's pavilion is earned. You watch the tent, not with envy, not with fear, but with the quiet understanding that some things are not yours to touch, that comfort here is not without cost, that silk walls keep out more than wind, that those who whisper inside do not always sleep peacefully. You are safe in the cold. The fire would make you sweat, and in the distance, a horse snorts, a bell chimes, and the wind picks up again, curling around the pavilion like it, too, must wait for permission. Before there were borders, before there were flags, before there were names for mountains and rivers, someone sat quietly and drew. The cartographer's world is not loud. It does not gallop or shout. It listens, it watches, it records. Imagine a tent within the Mongol encampment. It is not the Khan's pavilion, nor is it a herder's felt shelter. It is something in between, not marked by power, but by ink. Inside, the air smells of sheep hide and soot. The light comes from a narrow slit in the wall and the flicker of an oil lamp. You kneel on a mat. Before you lies a stretched hide, pinned flat, the color of sand. A brush rests beside a stone pot. Inside the pot, ink made from ground charcoal and goat bile. It's thick, dark, slow to dry, like the empire itself. The cartographer does not rush. He does not guess. He begins with what he knows. The river that runs past the southern trade station, the hills near the horse breeding camp, the bend in the road where travelers speak of ghosts. Each line he draws is deliberate, thin, then thick, then pressed again to hold its place on the hide. He dips the brush, lifts it, waits. Every mark must be remembered, not invented. He consults a scroll, an old one, frayed edges, smeared places where another hand pressed too hard. It came from another tent, another year, another pair of eyes. Now it's his turn. But drawing the world isn't about drawing what is right in front of you. It's about drawing what others felt. What the merchant said was a day's ride. What the soldier said was a cold place where the stars are sharper. He listens to stories, to rumors, to tales of cursed wells and sacred trees. He does not believe them all, but he notes them, with faint dots, with faded marks. Because if the next rider sees the same cursed tree, then it becomes real. Reality, on the map, is collective. Outside, children chase each other in circles. Inside, the map grows. Cities appear like seeds, roads like threads. Mountains rise from a press of the brush's back edge. He does not label everything. The important things do not need names, they just are. When he tires, he does not stop. He closes his eyes, traces lines in the air. Mapping is not about seeing, it's about remembering. The last caravan that passed through said the oasis had dried. He makes a note, not erased, just changed. He adds a mark beside the old symbol. Maybe the next traveler will find water, maybe not. Even truth must travel. The cartographer eats cold meat, drinks sour milk, keeps a warm cloth across his knees. But he thinks in distances, not in hunger. He has never seen the sea, but he's drawn it many times. Blue waves shaped like scales, where ships are drawn like beetles, tiny antennae catching wind. The sea may not be part of the empire yet, but it belongs on the map. When he finishes for the night, he covers the hide with a plain cloth, ties it gently. It will be delivered to a commander, who will spread it beside a fire, trace a finger from hill to hill, and decide whether men should march. But no one will speak of the cartographer. His is a quiet hand, a sleeping mind, a life spent drawing other people's roads. And in the dark, as the fire dims and the ink dries, he leans back, listens to the wind outside his tent, and dreams not of victory, but of a road so straight it never curves, of a map so complete it ends in silence, of an empire so still it draws itself. You might imagine that war is what defines the Mongol steppe, that hoofbeats and conquest, armor and arrows, these were its rhythm. But that would be only half the truth, because between those galloping echoes there was another rhythm, one made of heartbeat, of breath, of soft cries in the dark, of life beginning where so often death was expected. This is the rhythm of the midwife's bell, not a bell that rings to alarm, but one that chimes softly, tied to a leather cord, hung near the entrance of the birthing tent, letting others know, today someone is arriving. The tent for birth looks like any other from afar. Wool felt stretched, tight, tied down with care. No markings, no flags, no sign of ceremony, but inside the air is warmer, stiller, softer somehow. A small fire burns low, not for light, but for steam. Stones are heated and wrapped in cloth. Water is warmed in copper pots, and the midwife waits. She does not speak much. Her hair is braided. Her hands are thick from years of pulling and pressing. She carries no weapons, but she commands like a general. She knows every pain, every pause between contractions, every breath that should be taken, and the ones that should be held. She has seen 30, 40, maybe more. Some who arrived screaming, some who arrived silent, some who didn't stay long. But each one, each tiny life, left an imprint, a memory, a scent, a moment in time, stitched quietly into the felt of the tent. The birthing mother lies on thick mats. Her face is drawn. Her fingers grip the hem of her robe. Outside, the wind howls, but inside, there is only the sound of breath and the low murmur of prayers. Not dramatic ones, just soft, repetitive ones. Whispers, more for rhythm than meaning. The midwife rubs oil into the mother's belly. She listens, not with instruments, but with the press of her ear, and she waits. Time here is not measured in hours, but in waves. Pain comes, crests, falls, and then again and again. At the entrance, a relative crouches, waiting with herbs. They will not enter unless called. Birth is sacred, not to be watched, only supported. Sometimes the birth is fast, a few hours, a short storm. Sometimes it is longer. Sometimes the bell does not chime again. But tonight the signs are good. The child arrives in the early dark, not with a scream, but with a wet breath, followed by silence, then a cough, then a whimper that sounds almost curious. The midwife wraps the child in cloth, not embroidered, just warm, just clean. She rubs the tiny chest, whispers something not in a language for others, but one she uses only for the new. It is not known what she says, only that she says it every time. She hands the child to the mother, who looks not with joy, not with tears, but with the exhausted expression of someone who has climbed a long hill and only now sees the sunrise. Outside, someone quietly adds more wood to the fire. The bell is untied, gently placed in a cloth pouch. The news will spread slowly. No celebrations, just nods, just small smiles. Tomorrow, a name will be chosen. Maybe from the wind, maybe from a dream, maybe from an ancestor who once rode with the Khan. But tonight, there is no need for names, only sleep. The midwife tucks the cloths. She checks the fire. She kneels, stretches her back, and pulls a thick felt over her own legs. She will not sleep deeply. She never does. Another birth may come. Another bell may chime. But for now, there is quiet. The quiet that comes not from war ending, but from life beginning. And in that quiet, as the stars shift slightly in the sky, and the cold air brushes the outside of the tent, the steppe itself seems to exhale. Because even on a land known for conquest, the softest cries still matter most. And the midwife, who holds no weapon, wears no armor, and commands no army, remains the quiet keeper of the empire's future. Not all things carried on the Mongol steppe were made of leather, iron, or bone. Some were made of air, invisible but unforgettable, passed from lips to ears, from fathers to sons, from grandmothers to the wind. These were the songs of the steppe, carried not in saddlebags, but in memory, stored not in scrolls, but in breath. Imagine, for a moment, the night just beginning. The horses are tethered. Their breath steams in the fading light. The tents have settled into silence. And somewhere, not far, not close, a sound begins. It does not rise quickly. It doesn't announce itself. It starts like a hum, like wind across dry grass, like a whisper trying to become something more. It is the voice of a rider, but not the kind that shouts. This is the kind that waits until even the stars are listening. He sings slowly, not of war, not of glory, but of a mountain he once saw, of a horse that once ran, of a mother's hand in his. You sit near the edge of the fire. You cannot see him, not clearly, but you feel the sound moving through the air. It is low, a kind of hum that vibrates your chest, then it splits. A second tone seems to ride the first, like a bird flying above its own shadow. This is kumi, throat singing. It is not performed, it is released, and each note carries with it memory, scent, distance, and silence. The fire crackles. You stare into it, not to warm yourself, but to let the sound move through you. In the corner, someone picks up a horsehead fiddle, a maureen core. The neck is carved like a stallion. Its strings are made of tail hair. Its voice is sad and strong. He draws the bow across slowly. The note bends, almost like the wind catching a tent flap. Not sharp, just ... awake. No one claps. There is no clapping here, only breath and time. But their rhythms are old, from days before written history. From days when songs were how you remembered your father's voice. Some are sharp and playful, meant to mimic the canter of a young foal. You can hear it in the short bursts of the bow, in the laughter between chords, even in the way the singer tosses a glance toward the sky, as if the stars know the next line better than he does. Women sing, too, their voices higher, gentler, often beginning in lullabies. You once heard a song from a grandmother who no longer had grandchildren. She sang anyway. She said the steppe deserved to remember. Tonight's songs are for remembering, not performing. They are not written down. No one here has a scroll, no parchment, no ink, only the rhythm of the hooves, the sound of grass bending, the echo of the bell from the herder's neck strap. Notes strung like beads along a breath. You cannot hum them after. They do not stay unless you let them. As the music continues, you feel your breathing slow. The fire burns lower. The shadows grow longer. The horses shift in their sleep, but no one speaks. There's a silence after the last note, not a pause, a space. It hangs like mist, like the inside of a memory. Then someone clears their throat, wraps their robe tighter, and the music ends. But it is not gone. It lingers in the way you lie down, in the way you close your eyes, in the way the wind touches your cheek with just enough cold to remind you still here. The music of the Mongol steppe is not about melody. It's about memory, and tonight it sleeps beside you, not in your ears, but in the quiet place behind your breath, where the empire never fully fades. At dawn, before the yaks begin to stir, before the children's first yawn, and long before any cooking fires have been stoked, you hear a rustle, not a large one, not alarming, just the delicate sweep of feathers and the soft shift of leather against wrist. You open your eyes, still wrapped in the warmth of felt and night, and outside, silhouetted against the horizon, you see the figure of a man, or perhaps a woman. It doesn't matter. Their shape is quiet. Still, perched on their arm is a falcon. It moves with the slightest twitch, its head turning with near-perfect silence, surveying the earth below. This is not war. This is not for glory. This is the hunt, but not the kind filled with shouts or blood. This is the quiet art, the falcon's art, and you are lucky to witness it. You rise slowly, wrap yourself in wool. The air is crisp, not sharp, not biting, just enough to keep your breath short, your movements careful. The hunter walks across the dew-soaked grass, not fast. They move with ease, as if not to startle the morning itself. The falcon is calm, eyes fixed, wings tucked. There is no leash, no harsh grip, just trust, woven over seasons. From the moment the falcon was taken as a chick, fed by hand, taught not by command, but by rhythm and presence, the journey continues, step after step, no trails, only knowing. Eventually you reach a rise, a small bluff overlooking a field. Brushes sway, mice rustle, a hare darts, its shadow vanishing before it arrives. The falcon tenses, not wildly, just a pulse in its legs, a twitch of its beak, a narrowing of its golden eyes. The hunter raises their arm. No words, no shouts, just a gesture, a moment of stillness, too precise to be accidental. and the falcon flies. There is no flapping chaos, no thundering wings, only one beat, and then the wind carries it, a shadow against the clouds, a curved line against the sun. You squint to follow it, but soon it's just a speck, and then not even that. The hunter watches, unmoving. A full minute passes, then another. Time slows, until finally, far off, a blur of motion, a dive, too fast for the eye, too quiet for the ear. Only a puff of earth in the distance. The kill is clean, swift, efficient, no pride, no celebration, only balance. The falcon waits as the hunter arrives. They kneel, pick up the bird gently, offer it a treat, dried meat from a leather pouch. The falcon eats slowly, still watching, always watching. And then they return, together. The wind rises, but it carries no sound. The grasses sway, but they reveal no path. And yet, step by step, the hunter and their companion find their way back, not by direction, but by presence. When they return to the encampment, few people even look up. This is not spectacle. This is routine. Later, the meat will be shared, used in broth, added to rice. Nothing wasted. The falcon returns to its perch, tethered not tightly, but gently. Its eyes close, not from exhaustion, but contentment. You sit by your tent, watching the sky where it flew. You think about what it must feel like to rise so quickly, to see so much, to dive with purpose. But you do not wish to be the falcon. You are content to be the watcher, because sometimes seeing is enough. And on the Mongol steppe, every roll, whether above the clouds or close to the grass, holds meaning. You close your eyes. The wind brushes your cheeks. The falcon breathes beside you. And somewhere in the distance, another shadow passes overhead, not threatening, not heroic, just part of the rhythm. A silent shape woven into the quiet life of those who never needed songs of victory, only mornings like this one. The smell comes before the sound. You stir slightly in your felt-covered cot. The wind outside carries a hint of something warm, savory, earthy, not sharp or sweet, just simple, familiar. It is the smell of boiling bones. You do not need to rise yet, but you know the camp is already awake, not loud, never loud, but moving, like water beneath a thin sheet of ice. In a Mongol encampment, food is not a celebration. It is a rhythm, a practice, a way of shaping time and space, one simmering pot at a time. Outside the yurt, a woman, maybe old, maybe not, tends the fire with a long metal rod. She does not poke it with aggression. She guides it, feeds it, listens to the crackle like one listens to a friend. Over the flame, a pot hangs low, suspended by thick iron hooks that creak just a little in the wind. Inside the pot, bones, big ones, small ones, goat, yak, maybe sheep. They do not float, they rest, and from their resting, flavor rises. There are no spices, not like what travelers from the Silk Road would expect. No saffron, no cinnamon, but there is fat, not often, just enough to keep the bones from settling too long, just enough to remind them that transformation takes movement. This is Shulgin bone broth, not just food, medicine, memory, stamina in liquid form. The broth will be ladled into bowls that have cracks and scratches, each mark a chapter in a quiet history. The children will eat in small sips, their hands cupped around the clay for warmth. The men will slurp without urgency, and the elders, they will stare into the broth as if it holds the reflection of another life. Sometimes milk is added, not for sweetness, but for fullness. A splash of fermented mare's milk, its temps cutting the heaviness, bringing the taste back into balance. As the sky balances day and night, as the horse balances gallop and glide. Nearby, someone flattens dough with the palm of their hand. It's not rolled, not shaped. It is pressed over and over into round, uneven discs. These will be dropped into the broth, not to cook, but to listen. They soak, they soften, they become part of the story. There is no recipe. There is no scroll with precise instructions. The cook does not measure, she feels, she waits, she stirs when the fire says so. Later, perhaps, a traveler arrives. Dust on their boots, stories on their tongue. They are handed a bowl without ceremony. They drink, and in that moment, without words, they understand something about this place. Not through banners, not through conquests, but through broth. Because the Mongols did not build with marble, they built with motion, and with meals that could be made with nothing but bones and time. You hold your own bowl now, warm in your hands. Steam fogs your nose. The first sip is not flavorful, it is patient. The second, more familiar. By the third, you do not need salt. You do not crave herbs. You only want the quiet, the distant creak of yak carts, the crackle of fire, the slosh of liquid against clay. This is not fine cuisine. This is survival, made sacred. A child asks for another ladle. He is not scolded. The broth is shared. There is always enough, because it comes from what remains. Bones, water, waiting. Later, after the eating is done, after the pot is scraped clean, someone places the used bones on a cloth. They will be buried, perhaps, or left out for scavengers. Returned to the land or sky. Nothing wasted. Not the marrow, not the steam, not the silence. You lie back down, your stomach no longer empty, your breath slower. The broth settles within you like a memory passed from mother to daughter. And as your eyes close, you realize the flavor will fade, but the warmth will stay. That is the legacy of Mongol cuisine. Not spice, but stillness. Not abundance, but enough. You wake, but you are not alone. There are figures already moving, softly, not hurried, not loud. Their shadows stretch long across the felt floor of the yurt, cast by the early light of morning, slipping between seams in the canvas. They do not speak, not because they are forbidden, but because the morning does not need their voices. It understands them already. These are the women of the steppe. And in this world of horse lords and thundering hooves, they are often unseen, but never unimportant. You sit quietly near the fire pit, watching the way one of them threads a needle. Her hands do not shake. She has done this 1,000 times, pulling sinew through leather, mending seams, repairing lives. Another unrolls a bundle of dried herbs. They are not for flavor. They are for healing, boiled in milk, crushed into poultices, tucked behind ears, placed beside the heads of the ill and the weary. And yet another stoops to lift a toddler, his cheeks red with cold. She hums a melody that has no name, a song of smoke and lullabies, of wind and wool and yesterday's fire. There is a saying among the elders: the man rides the horse, but the woman carries the world. And here, in the hush of morning, you begin to understand why. It is she who raises the yurt, each thick pole of the circular wall set into place by hands both calloused and careful. She ties the roof lattice, she stretches the felt over the bones of the house. And with each knot, she secures not just shelter, but memory. These women know the winds. They know when to shift the camp. They know where the grass will regrow, where the goats will not stray too far, and where the air is soft enough for a newborn's lungs. They are the ones who prepare for the return. When warriors ride off, it is the women who remain, tending the hearth, teaching the children, shaping the silence into stories. A girl, no older than 8, kneels beside her grandmother. They are spinning wool, not with a wheel, but with a spindle no larger than your hand. The thread gathers slowly, each twist a whisper from the past, one generation winding itself around another. In another tent, a young wife prepares arog. She stirs the fermented mare's milk, lifting the ladle only when the scent tells her it's ready. She does not need to taste, she knows. A widow repairs saddlebags, not for her own use, but because the young ones will need them. She does not complain. The rhythm is enough. Outside, you see them chopping wood, milking goats, shaping dough, tending fires that never seem to go out, even when no one is watching. And when dusk falls, when the yurts glow from within, and the steppe turns silver with starlight, they sit together, not to gossip, not to plan, but simply to sit. One braids another's hair, fingers weaving not just strands, but history. Their laughter is low, their worries even lower, and the children curl at their feet like pups beside the hearth. There are no titles, no thrones, no monuments carved in their names, but the Mongol Empire would not have ridden far without these women holding the center. You realize then, it was not the swords that held the empire together, not the drums, not the horses. It was the ones who mended the cloaks, who boiled the broth, who measured time in cups of milk and bundles of wool. Their power is not shouted. It is stitched into tents, sung into sleep, and folded into the bones of every child they raise. You lie back down. The air is cool. The fire has faded, but the warmth remains. And in the hush between breaths, you hear the whisper of felt being folded, of thread pulled tight, of a lullaby hummed low. You let go. The wind sighs outside, and the quiet strength of women cradles the camp in peace. And so you sleep. The story ends, but the silence remains. You have walked stone corridors, tended soft soil, tasted bread baked centuries ago in imagination, and listened to the echo of prayers you never needed to say aloud. You have sat by the flicker of candlelight, your fingers stained with ink that never dries in your memory. And now, as the final thoughts fade, you find yourself still, not empty, but calm. History does not shout. It hums, it rustles, it sighs. And if you listen closely, as you have tonight, it guides you gently toward rest. Tonight, you stepped through portals made not of wood or glass, but of memory and soft narrative. You wandered dusty courtyards and cold cloisters. You traced the edges of old manuscripts with your imagination. You smelled the earth after medieval rain. You heard the pages turn in the quiet of distant libraries. You paused beside weathered fountains where monks washed their hands before prayer, and you lingered in the stillness of stone-walled rooms that held only candlelight and time. You followed stories not for their excitement, but for their rhythm. And now that rhythm continues, not with words, but with breath. A slow inhale, a deeper exhale. The way history rests in the folds of silence, you too can settle into the folds of night. The monks have gone to sleep. The bells have stopped ringing. The garden has folded itself into shadow. The words in the scriptorium have been written. The candles have gone out, and the night has deepened, and here you are, somewhere between then and now. There is no need to hold the facts tightly. You do not need to remember the Latin words, the names of herbs, the dates of worn-out kings or tired scribes. That is not why we returned to the past. We returned for something softer, for the comfort of rhythm, the repetition of lives once lived, the quiet certainty that no matter how hard or humble a day was, the sun still set and rose again. So much of history is hidden in the ordinary, not the parades or the proclamations, but the quiet rituals. A monk tying his sandals, a mother brushing straw from a cot, a farmer's boots soaked from the morning dew, a child watching. Shadows stretch across stone, and you've been there with them. You've moved among them in the stillness. And now, in your own time, you can let go of the world again. The walls of time are thick, but not impenetrable. With every breath, you've slipped further into a sanctuary where centuries whisper. There's a sacred stillness in this place, the kind of quiet you feel in your bones, the kind that hums under your skin, like the last notes of a song you almost forgot. Your breath has slowed. Perhaps your eyes have closed, or perhaps they linger, blinking slowly in the darkness. There is no rush. Let the weight of the world lift a little now. Let the voices of the past fade into a low hum. Let the wind of time brush gently across your thoughts. You are not alone. Somewhere, across ages and continents, others have closed their eyes beneath a starless sky, on straw mattresses, or stone floors, or tucked tightly into woolen sheets. They, too, knew silence. They, too, listened to night. We so often think of the past as loud. It lived in the hush of early morning, in the scrape of bread on a wooden board, in the soft shuffle of footsteps in candlelit corridors. It lived in repetition, in the seasons returning, in the tasks done daily, year after year. And in that repetition, there was peace. So rest now in that peace. Let your thoughts soften. It's all right if your mind still wanders. If it returns to the story, let it. Let it drift back to the monastery walls, to the fields beyond, to the chapel's echo. Let it loop again and again if it wishes. There is no destination, only the quiet movement through time. The candle beside you has burned low. The ink has dried. Your quill rests beside your folded hands. You lean back. The stone wall behind you cools your skin. You listen. Outside, night creatures stir. A bird rustles in the rafters. The wind shifts through leaves. But inside, all is still. And in that stillness, you begin to fade, not in fear, but in trust. Trust in the rhythm of silence, in the continuation of breath, in the story told not in excitement, but in ease. History was not always made in battle or glory. Sometimes it was made by simply surviving a long winter, by copying one more page, by planting one more root, by folding hands in quiet prayer, by closing one's eyes at the end of a long day. Let yourself feel the weight of centuries lift. Let yourself belong to nothing but this moment. The fire has burned low in the hearth. Ash curls along the stone base. The moon sits high above the cloister roof, casting faint silver across the stones. No footsteps remain in the garden. No bells, no murmurs, only stillness. And in that stillness, the long breath of history continues. Time becomes soft. It slows. The urgency of modern life melts away, replaced by the timeless rhythm of centuries past. You do not need to remember everything. You do not need to understand it all. You only need to feel the quiet presence of the past resting beside you. Let your limbs grow heavy. Let your thoughts drift. Let the night take you gently. The hum of history is like a lullaby, steady, soothing, slow. Perhaps you see an image in your mind, a lone candle flickering softly by a monk's elbow, a quiet courtyard under a slate-gray sky, a quill dipped in ink lifted with reverence, or a chapel door just barely ajar, letting in the hush of morning fog. These are the corners of history that soothe rather than stir. And still, even now, there are echoes not of voices, but of presence. The gentle hush of cloistered routines, the steady rhythm of feet on cold flagstones, the unbroken silence of stone arches bowing overhead. You have been walking through one long twilight, one long corridor of forgotten footsteps, and now you can pause, rest, breathe. There is nothing more to do. The work of the day is done. The past has been honored in this room, beneath these words, beneath this history. You are safe. You are still. You are home. And when your thoughts drift once more, they may return to this sanctuary, this echo of lives once lived, this comfort wrapped in old linen, old parchment, old prayer. This is the end of this story, but not the end of rest. Let the quiet take you. Let the hum of time carry you. Let the stillness of centuries soothe you. You do not need to stay awake for the rest. We will still be here when you return, when the next night falls, when history calls again, not loudly, but gently. And if you listen, you'll hear it in the shuffle of straw, the sigh of old stone, the scratch of a quill, the echo of bells long silenced, and the softness of a single breath before sleep. Good night, sleep well. The past is at peace, and now so are you. The story ends, but the silence remains. You have walked stone corridors, tended soft soil, tasted bread baked centuries ago in imagination, and listened to the echo of prayers you never needed to say aloud. You have sat by the flicker of candlelight, your fingers stained with ink that never dries in your memory. And now, as the final thoughts fade, you find yourself still, not empty, but calm. History does not shout. It hums, it rustles, it sighs. And if you listen closely, as you have tonight, it guides you gently toward rest. Tonight, you stepped through portals made not of wood or glass, but of memory and soft narrative. You wandered dusty courtyards and cold cloisters. You traced the edges of old manuscripts with your imagination. You smelled the earth after medieval rain. You heard the pages turn in the quiet of distant libraries. You paused beside weathered fountains where monks washed their hands before prayer, and you lingered in the stillness of stone-walled rooms that held only candlelight and time. You followed stories not for their excitement, but for their rhythm. And now that rhythm continues, not with words, but with breath. A slow inhale, a deeper exhale. The way history rests in the folds of silence, you too can settle into the folds of night. The monks have gone to sleep. The bells have stopped ringing. The garden has folded itself into shadow. The words in the scriptorium have been written. The candles have gone out, and the night has deepened. And here you are, somewhere between then and now. There is no need to hold the facts tightly. You do not need to remember the Latin words, the names of herbs, the dates of worn-out kings or tired scribes. That is not why we returned to the past. We returned for something softer, for the comfort of rhythm, the repetition of lives once lived, the quiet certainty that no matter how hard or humble a day was, the sun still set and rose again. So much of history is hidden in the ordinary, not the parades or the proclamations, but the quiet rituals. A monk tying his sandals, a mother brushing straw from a cot, a farmer's boots soaked from the morning dew, a child watching. Shadows stretch across stone, and you've been there with them. You've moved among them in the stillness. And now, in your own time, you can let go of the world again. The walls of time are thick, but not impenetrable. With every breath, you've slipped further into a sanctuary where centuries whisper. There's a sacred stillness in this place, the kind of quiet you feel in your bones, the kind that hums under your skin, like the last notes of a song you almost forgot. Your breath has slowed. Perhaps your eyes have closed, or perhaps they linger, blinking slowly in the darkness. There is no rush. Let the weight of the world lift a little now. Let the voices of the past fade into a low hum. Let the wind of time brush gently across your thoughts. You are not alone. Somewhere, across ages and continents, others have closed their eyes beneath a starless sky, on straw mattresses, or stone floors, or tucked tightly into woolen sheets. They, too, knew silence. They, too, listened to night. We so often think of the past as loud. It lived in the hush of early morning, in the scrape of bread on a wooden board, in the soft shuffle of footsteps in candlelit corridors. It lived in repetition, in the seasons returning, in the tasks done daily, year after year. And in that repetition, there was peace. So rest now in that peace. Let your thoughts soften. It's all right if your mind still wanders. If it returns to the story, let it. Let it drift back to the monastery walls, to the fields beyond, to the chapel's echo. Let it loop again and again if it wishes. There is no destination, only the quiet movement through time. The candle beside you has burned low. The ink has dried. Your quill rests beside your folded hands. You lean back. The stone wall behind you cools your skin. You listen. Outside, night creatures stir. A bird rustles in the rafters. The wind shifts through leaves. But inside, all is still. And in that stillness, you begin to fade, not in fear, but in trust. Trust in the rhythm of silence, in the continuation of breath, in the story told not in excitement, but in ease. History was not always made in battle or glory. Sometimes it was made by simply surviving a long winter, by copying one more page, by planting one more root, by folding hands in quiet prayer, by closing one's eyes at the end of a long day. Let yourself feel the weight of centuries lift. Let yourself belong to nothing but this moment. The fire has burned low in the hearth. Ash curls along the stone base. The moon sits high above the cloister roof, casting faint silver across the stones. No footsteps remain in the garden. No bells, no murmurs, only stillness. And in that stillness, the long breath of history continues. Time becomes soft. It slows. The urgency of modern life melts away, replaced by the timeless rhythm of centuries past. You do not need to remember everything. You do not need to understand it all. You only need to feel the quiet presence of the past resting beside. You. Let your limbs grow heavy. Let your thoughts drift. Let the night take you gently. The hum of history is like a lullaby, steady, soothing, slow. Perhaps you see an image in your mind, a lone candle flickering softly by a monk's elbow, a quiet courtyard under a slate-gray sky, a quill dipped in ink lifted with reverence, or a chapel door just barely ajar, letting in the hush of morning fog. These are the corners of history that soothe rather than stir. And still, even now, there are echoes not of voices, but of presence. The gentle hush of cloistered routines, the steady rhythm of feet on cold flagstones, the unbroken silence of stone arches bowing overhead. You have been walking through one long twilight, one long corridor of forgotten footsteps, and now you can pause, rest, breathe. There is nothing more to do. The work of the day is done. The past has been honored in this room, beneath these words, beneath this history. You are safe. You are still. You are home. And when your thoughts drift once more, they may return to this sanctuary, this echo of lives once lived, this comfort wrapped in old linen, old parchment, old prayer. This is the end of this story, but not the end of rest. Let the quiet take you. Let the hum of time carry you. Let the stillness of centuries soothe you. You do not need to stay awake for the rest. We will still be here when you return, when the next night falls, when history calls again, not loudly, but gently. And if you listen, you'll hear it in the shuffle of straw, the sigh of old stone, the scratch of a quill, the echo of bells long silenced, and the softness of a single breath before sleep. Good night, sleep well. The past is at peace, and now, so are you.